My name is Sedrick Gilbert. This is Let's Talk About It with Sedrick at Harvest. This evening, I'm joined by a truly remarkable young man, Mr. Damian Johnson. And our topic is on having difficult conversations. Please be with us tonight and give us a moment while we allow background noise to pass by. Okay. Let me just say this. Damian is someone who the Lord brought into my life here at Harvest Coffee. And when I first met him, there was a fire burning in him, a passion to make a positive impact in this community and uplifting other people. And it's my honor and pleasure to have him here with me tonight as we discuss and share our stories that are particularly impactful on this day, April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and some of the most difficult conversations to have are those surrounding abuse. But before we get to that, I want to address a conversation that many of us shy away from that deals with our own mortality here in this world. In knowing that one day will be our last. It's something that many of us don't want to deal with, but it's inevitable. And what comes after that? What do we leave behind? Particularly in some communities, there's a hesitancy to deal with issues surrounding life insurance, leaving wills, or living trusts. Avoiding it does not make it a reality. And we have to keep in mind that failing to do so, what it leaves behind when we are gone, for our families and our loved ones. From first-hand experience, I can tell you that failing to address that, to have those conversations, leaves a mess, leaves more hurt and trauma for those already grieving and mourning. Those that we love, we should do our best to shield from having to deal with the fallout of inaction. It's imperative that we get past the difficulty of having those conversations and to not leave unnecessary messes in the wake of our demise. So I urge you, if you haven't done so, to not only have the conversations about what you want to leave behind, your wishes, but to also take the actions to do so. It's one thing just to have the conversations, but another to put into action and to put into words, into writing, your final wishes. Now, we move on to what I know for myself, and David, I'm sure for you too, have been some of the most difficult conversations in our lives. Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What can hinder and impede difficult conversations? Fear. discomfort and the reactions that may come from them. However, there's harm that comes with keeping silent. There's anguish and turmoil. And until the unspeakable is spoken, there's no healing, there's no understanding. I was a victim of childhood molestation. I kept quiet about what was happening to me for years. Out of fear, out of not knowing who to trust. It had been my older half-brother who had done it to me. I only told what was happening after I had slipped out of my grandparents' house out of fear of what was happening to me. When I finally told what happened, my mother and my stepfather at the time went to my grandparents and discussed it with them, and got back home, and my stepfather told me that they had decided that since it had been my half-brother, police wouldn't be consulted about the situation. After that, I was only asked one thing. Had my half-brother done anything to my butt? When I answered yes, nothing was said. It was so uncomfortable. If further questions would have been asked, I could have told there had been no penetration. It was just grinding. But I was left to have to navigate that all on my own. I was 12 years old. From that point on, I would see other family members still interacting with my half-brother. And it compounded the anguish that I was in. I felt as if they didn't care what he had done to me. And didn't find out until many years later, no one had actually been told. I carried this pain, this turmoil inside of me up into my adult years. It led to acting out. It led to depression, disillusionment. With me walking around wounded. On the outside, it looked like I was fine. But there was so much pain inside. And I felt like I didn't have anyone who I could talk to about it. I felt dirty. I felt guilty. I felt shame. And didn't have the tools equipped to express how I was feeling.
Yeah.
And it's not just about me. Those around me that knew didn't know how to either. Because it was that discomfort to where the pain was ignored because it was too difficult. And I know that I was loved, but even that love couldn't break through the discomfort in facing what had happened.
Were you dead for a while?
When I finally, through counseling and through the strength through Jesus Christ, had conversations that were decades in the making, it brought about the healing that I needed. It brought about clarity in my life. It brought about finding forgiveness for myself. I went through counseling, and my therapist had said it was up to me as to whether I wanted to confront my half-brother or not. And at first, I was so grateful for the breakthrough of not being triggered even by just seeing his name. But I said, no, that's not necessary. However, I received an invitation for a meeting that was being held to plan a family reunion. And I saw that one of the planners was my half-brother. I wasn't triggered by that at all. I prayed and I thought, and 2 days later, I RSVP'd to go. And had planned in my mind what I was going to say to him. I wanted to unleash all that pent-up rage, all that pent-up anger, all that pent-up hurt. I wanted him to feel that. What was extraordinary was that my mother, she asked me, was I going to the meeting? And I told her, yes, ma'am. And she said, you know who's going to be there, don't you? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, I'm going to be right there by your side. That was something that I had needed to hear since I was that little boy. She had broken through her discomfort to show her love and support. It became a moot point because he didn't show up to the meeting. But I found my strength. The reunion was postponed when I let my cousins know that it had been done.
The boys can see their own days.
A year or so later, a reunion was finally held.
He doesn't need it there.
Well, before that, my great aunt passed away. And I spoke at her funeral, and then everyone had gone to the graveside, and it was in the country across the road, so I stayed back. And as everyone came walking back up the road, I saw my half-brother. And I called him over. The moment had come. And I was getting ready with this epic monologue that I had planned for years. And when he stood before me, I opened my mouth. And all that I had planned, none of it came out. Instead, I told him, I forgive you. It doesn't excuse what you did to me, but I forgive you. And he said that he had wanted to reach out to me, but he guessed that I had been a bigger man. And what he did to me had been done to him. In that moment, I felt such a weight lifted off. And quite honestly, I didn't care about him saying that he too had been abused. So fast forward to when the family reunion was actually held. Inside talking to relatives, and he walks in, and I noticed that he was keeping his distance from me. And I realized that when it comes to forgiveness, it needs to be full and unconditional. And if I held on to any resentment, if I was still holding on to the pain, I hadn't truly forgiven. And it wasn't right for the distance to be. So I called him over and shook his hand. Afterwards, I had been asked to speak to the family. And when I did so, I stood and I said it was important for us as a family to come together, to unite, and to forgive where necessary. And that I hadn't actually acknowledged him as being my brother in over 30 years. I was going to not only acknowledge that he was my brother, but before everyone there, to let it be known that I love him. And called him up, and we shook hands and we hugged.
Nothing else.
Afterwards, two of my cousins, they were commending me for what I had said and what I had done.
Okay, well, be safe, because, like, so if someone takes a picture of me, I'm like, there's like...
And another difficult conversation, several came from that. Because they told me that our family was full of so many secrets. And I said, I know. And they said, you know, he was abused too. And I said, yeah, he told me. And they asked me, do you know who it was? And I said, honestly, I didn't care. I knew that he knew what he did to me was wrong because he had been threatening me. They alluded to the fact that others within the family had known about his abuse and who had done it. And they didn't come right out and say it, but alluded to it having been my own father. And if that were true, it meant that my dad, who I held in such high esteem, who had been my hero, it meant that he had inadvertently set into effect what had been the most traumatic experience of my life. When I got home, it was like a bomb had been dropped on me. Yeah. I did not. Let my mom know that I was going through. allowed me to open up to my mom.
Oh my God, that happened last time. Remember, I was so excited to go to that.
That led to, and it was one of the most difficult conversations. But with me opening up to her, it led to better communication between the two of us. More healing and providing answers to questions that had remained unspoken for so long. I am such a better man because of having those difficult conversations. I'm a better man, a better son, a better brother. I'm a better me. Getting past that discomfort has allowed me to find peace. I never, after the counseling, because I had called my brother, and I told him, I said, you may not be comfortable with discussing it, but I need to ask you who abused you. He said, I wasn't abused. He said, that's not what you told me. I didn't tell you that. And I was angry. Angry with him.
Live.
And that left me in more anguish. Because I worked so hard to find that forgiveness for him. But I was angry again. I wondered, did that negate? But thankfully, I've been blessed with brothers in Christ. And one told me, Sedrick, it may be that God is using you to help break up the secrecy and bring healing to your family. I do my affirmations that I send out, and they go out over Instagram. I saw one day, and my brother was following me on Instagram. And at first I started to block him. But then I remember being told God might be using me to bring about healing. And then I knew that he had told me he had been abused. And so he may have needed to hear and see those words that I was posting to aid and support other people. So I didn't block him. These have been some of the most difficult conversations I've had to have, and it took me years to find the strength to do them. But by doing so, it hadn't just helped myself, but helped all those around me. And for the people that I come into contact with on a daily basis, to use these tools that I found to be open with the realization that it may be uncomfortable to initially have it, but the peace that comes as a result is immeasurable. So I'll turn it over to you, my brother.
Wow, thank you, Sedrick. That's beautiful. Thank you for being who you are, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you right now. And just having difficult conversations. And what's really cool is that I would say this last week I've been having a more difficult conversation, and so I'm gonna share those stories as well. But I'm gonna just kind of open up into what the theme is for today, actually, and sexual abuse month. That's what they call it.
Sexual assault awareness.
Sexual assault awareness month. I didn't know that. But I also have a story to share. What I've realized, I mean, there's so many layers to abuse and assault, and I want to share about that as well, but I'm going to talk about my experience of sexual assault. So, when I was 9 years old, I was sexually molested by a family member, and it was an extended family member. My mom was not married, but she had been in a long-term relationship with a man, and I have a little sister that is a byproduct of their relationship. And this man had his family, and so his family, basically we converged and became one family. He had nieces and nephews and things like that. And yeah, his nieces and nephews, they became part of the family, and they would come over all the time, and we would play video games, and we would enjoy each other and just be kids. The person that sexually molested me was his nephew, and I'm not sure exactly how old his nephew was. He was maybe, I was 9 years old, he could have been maybe like 12 or 13 or 14, I'm not sure exactly how old he was, but this person, we had a wonderful relationship. He was one of my favorite people to be around because he would always play video games with us, and he would chase us, and we would, on the trampoline and just be kids together. And one night, he had never expressed any signs of threat. He was never a threat. He never seemed like a threat. We knew that I think we had an idea that he was attracted to men and things like that, but it never came off to us like that in any way, shape, or form, actually. But one night, he would stay the night all the time. One night, we were actually laying in the bed together, and he started touching me. He started touching my balls, and he started touching my penis. And I remember laying there and not knowing what to do. And I'm like 9 years old. It was terrifying. And I'm not sure how long it went on. It wasn't going on that long, actually. I would say maybe 30 minutes, but I can't really recollect how long it happened. But that moment changed my life, obviously. I remember the next morning when I got up, I was really in disbelief. I really just didn't really understand what had happened. Couldn't really wrap my head around what had happened. I couldn't really wrap my head around this person that I had been playing with and that I had trusted would violate me in that way. And I'm not sure how long it took me to tell my mom, but eventually I told my mom. So at this time, I'm the oldest of 6 children, and I have 3 younger brothers and sisters. And then at this time also, I was actually, me and my family had just moved to New Mexico. So the man that my mom was with, he had family in New Mexico. So he had bought a house in New Mexico. We had just moved into this house in New Mexico. And at this time, my mom was also struggling with drug addiction. And she was not around that much, in and out of the house. And at this time, I remember that there were so many moments where my mom would come home and she would just get on her knees and cry and say, "I'm so sorry," because she had been out all night doing drugs and she wasn't there for us, and our stepdad was always taking care of us. And so this was a very chaotic time in my life, to say the least. And we would always have these family meetings with my mom and my little brothers and sisters and my stepdad, and she would always apologize about what she had done. And I think during one of the family meetings, I kind of finally shared what had happened, that I had been touched, and my stepdad didn't do anything about it. I don't even, yet again, I think they were just so shocked. And I remember my mom, yet again, she wasn't very stable, and so she kind of just went off, and I guess maybe even numbed herself to the experience. She was already doing drugs, and so it was just kind of something that was brushed off her shoulders. The gentleman Eric was the person that molested me. I believe maybe after I told my mom, he stopped coming around. I still saw him here and there, but obviously the relationship was not the same. And I didn't expect it to be the same. And years went by, and I never really told anyone. After that time I told my mom, I don't think it was ever brought up ever again, with my stepdad, with my mom, or with anyone. And unfortunately, I even think that some way, shape, or form that it had became a joke. I feel like I can recollect that something had happened where it had became like a joke between my siblings. I don't fully remember what it was, but I remember at some moment in time that it was said and then it was like laughed off, unfortunately. And so, but I knew that my mom had so much pain because she had actually, I knew that she had actually been sexually molested at some point in her life actually. But I can tell that she had so much pain and so much, so she was so hurt by it, but she didn't know how to navigate it or to help or to do anything. And so yet again, it was just kind of pushed under the rug. I know this was weird. I never told anyone about me being sexually molested. I didn't know who to tell. And yet again, in my culture growing up, it wasn't something that was talked about. Like many other things that were never talked about. Secrecy, like you said, it was just a secret. And yet it was a secret. My mom's demeanor showed everything. She was so overprotective, so much fear, so much worry, so much anxiety. Always, I have little sisters, and so always an idea of like, oh my God, I don't want my girls to get touched or something like that. Like this overprotection that arose over her, but not ever any communication, never any understanding, just fear. This never really came out. I never talked about it until I believe it was around 2020 that I started having conversations about being sexually molested. And it came out. I was truly blessed. So I'm a life coach, and that's what I do. And I have a passion for people, and I love people, and I love serving, and I love uplifting people. And in 2020, I was seeking guidance. I was seeking to talk to another man and about his journey. But he was a speaker, and I had been wanting to pursue being a speaker as well. And he was a young black man, maybe like 28 years old. And I had saw him on Instagram, and I had reached out to him, and I was like, hey man, I would like to know how did you get into speaking, and how did you get to do what you're doing? And he was like, yeah, let's have a conversation. I'm gonna never forget this guy. His name is Cam Phillips. And on our call, he told me that he had been sexually molested. And that was my first time ever hearing a brother of mine, a black man, say it and speak it so openly, without any shame, without any guilt. And it opened my eyes up. I was like, wow. I felt such a relief. My heart opened because, yeah, again, I didn't feel like I was alone. And I guess, that's something that is a reason that there's so much secrecy around it, because we feel that we're alone. We don't talk about it. So he opened my eyes. He opened my heart. And I would say that's when the healing really started to happen. I realized that I wasn't alone. And I also felt okay. And so that experience growing up, what it left me with is shame, guilt, a burden, a secret. And I love what you said, like being dirty, feeling that I was dirty, that I did something wrong. And embarrassed. It was my fault. And
sort of like the scarlet letter. And what you said, David, we belong to a club that we didn't ask.
yeah.
And there are more than we know. And much like with you, it was several years ago, a friend and classmate of mine,
Wait, that's so. I know her.
he made a post on Facebook where he revealed that he had been sexually molested as a boy. That is where the first seed was planted. His courage set me on the path. I read a book by Charles Blow. He was a columnist for the New York Times. And I saw so much of myself in his story. A black boy growing up in the South, a white, who was molested by a family member. And like you said, when I wrote an essay about what happened, that was the beginning of my healing process. And after doing that, I found, unfortunately, but then
Oh yeah, so we're on October, and like sometime after that, I realized that like Will can get me that night, and we did a couple games like about Iowa.
unfortunately it's been so many people for being used to help them to find their healing truth. And we're only as sick as our secrets.
And that's, I guess, you know, that was, like, say, the seed being planted. When I was able to share with that guy, when he told me his story and I told him my story, I felt the relief of, it's no longer mine. I don't have to hold on to it anymore. I don't have to keep this secret anymore. It's not inside of me festering. I have released it.
You know, it took up so much room.
Yes.
It was pointed out to me that I had spent so much of my life in survival.
Yes.
I accomplished a lot, but never really had time to enjoy those achievements. I would go from one thing to another.
Yeah.
And it was trying to, on one hand, there was a void inside of me. And on the other hand, I was consumed with what was hurting me.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to go about, and being a highly expressive person, but how do you put into words something that hurts so much?
Yeah, absolutely.
And as far as, and I want to say this especially with my mother. She has always loved me. She just didn't know how. I don't have any children of my own, but there's nothing like a mother's love.
I definitely wore a lot of work. I like those.
I didn't feel like she let me down at all. And in fact, I realized how much she sacrificed for myself and my siblings to protect her.
Yeah, sure.
And after she found out what was happening, she made sure that he wasn't around me again. And the difficult conversation that I ended up having with her when I told what I was going through as far as learning this about my dad possibly having done whatever. It brought about such clarity. And she said she had never been aware of anything like that as far as he and my brother were concerned. And she said she had always felt that my dad had to have been suffering from some mental health issues. So. Within our community,
It's like it's most of the stuff.
it's such a taboo subject. And unfortunately, the suffering in silence is killing me. You and I, the Lord is using us to be agents of change now. And I want to thank you for your eloquence,
To justify
your transparency,
and then also
your
people
truth,
with
the love that you have for your fellow brothers and sisters. This has been, because of you, an extraordinary evening. And it's just the beginning. I am so blessed to know and to love you, my brother. I commend you. I salute you. I see you. I appreciate you. And I love you. We're doing this thing. So, brother, harvest is getting ready to shut down. But we have only just begun.
Absolutely.
So, to brotherhood, to healing, and to being a spark for having those difficult conversations that as you have them, they become easier and they make life better for us. God bless you, brother. That's it for this Let's Talk About It with Sedrick and Harvey. My special guest, my brother, Davion Johnson. Take the time to have those conversations that might be difficult, but will ultimately bring about healing, understanding, and freedom. Good night.